This movie kind of feels like if Longlegs and Prisoners had a messed up baby, and that baby is Weapons. If you like those two movies, you are probably going to love this film. Is it the best horror movie of 2025? No, I wouldn't say that. I would say 28 years later, and also Sinners definitely takes that cake. So guys, this is director Zach Cregger's second major feature after he did Barbarian in 2022. That's another horror movie that I absolutely love. So I was really pumped up for this film. I was keen to see it. And just straight off the bat, guys, I think Zach Cregger, he just has this specific style that you can really see come through in his work. I think for me, the way that I notice it the most is in the camera work. It seems very sort of Kubrick inspired. It feels sort of deliberate. I don't know if I can quite describe it in the way I want to, but when you watch his movies, I think you can tell that he's being very specific with the way he kind of moves the camera, sometimes in very sort of direct or noticeable ways. Another thing that I love about Cregger's style is that even though he makes these pretty messed up horror movies, there's always some kind of element of comedy in there that doesn't feel tacked on. It doesn't take you out of the movie, but at the same time, it brings a welcome sense of levity to these kind of things. Because, you know, you can sit in a horror movie, it's showing you all these horrible things and you're not having a good time at all. For example, that's how I felt watching Bring Her Back earlier this year. But this movie, it's messed up at times, but also there's other parts where you're kind of laughing or you find yourself with a bit of a grin on your face. So that is something that I love about Cregger. A lot of interesting things happened with this film in its pre-production phase. Originally, they had Pedro Pascal in the role that Josh Brolin ultimately ends up playing. Same with Julia Garner, who came in to replace Renate Reinsve. I think there was a whole bunch of schedule clashing that ended up happening, and I think it really worked out for the better because I just can't imagine anyone else but Julia Garner and Josh Brolin in these roles. They are fantastic. You've also got Alden Ehrenreich, I think. Oh man, I'm pronouncing his name horribly. Please forgive me, guys. But it's so good to see him here. He's a really great actor, and I think he got a lot of unfair criticism around his role as Solo in that movie. He's really good here as well. So for horror fans, does this movie deliver? I think in terms of the horror aspects, yes, it definitely does, but in terms of the mystery aspects, I think it's gonna leave you feeling a little bit dissatisfied. It has some really creepy and also very creative dream sequences that I think are truly brilliant and really capture Cregger's talent as a director. There's some imagery, like there's one where there's a machine gun in the sky. That's an image that just feels very unique and different to a lot of other things that I've seen in horror movies or dream sequences in general. But then there's other aspects of the film that start to feel like they go a little bit into the cliche or onto a well-trodden path that we've seen before in other movies like Longlegs and Prisoners. If you love those films, again, you are going to see this movie, and if you just want to see more of that, you'll come to this film and you'll have a great time. But for me personally, there's just a few plot holes and things that frustrated me so much and really took me out of the movie. But in a second, we'll get into spoiler talk. But just before we do that, I also want to talk about how this movie is shown in sort of a non-linear, segmented perspective. Apparently, it's inspired by Magnolia, which I know as a film reviewer, it's terrible that I haven't seen that movie. I still really need to check that out. But basically, the movie takes place from the different perspective of a whole bunch of different characters, and it is really satisfying seeing them all line up together. It was quite creative and fun in that way. Also kind of a bit Dunkirky-esque with how all the sort of perspectives and things line up together. And it gives you a chance to really think and try and piece together these events, and really satisfies your curiosity when you get to go back a little bit in time and see what happens. So that part of the mystery elements of the film, that part feels satisfying. But but now we're going to jump into spoiler talk, guys, so you've been warned. Overall, this whole movie, to me, it just kind of feels like it amounts to nothing. I was sort of just left sitting there at the end going, so what was that all supposed to mean? Because, long story short, guys, basically, there's one kid who doesn't disappear in the film. All of his other classmates disappear at 2:17 a.m. They're seen running out the door. There's one kid left, and it turns out that his auntie is this creepy witch lady who's been doing all these spells that's somehow been influencing these kids and hypnotizing people and causing people to kill each other. And basically the kid who's left, his parents are sort of being held hostage by this witch. And so he's kind of left with no choice but to sort of go along with everything. And at the end of the film, you just don't know what her motivations are. It's implied that she's got some kind of terminal illness like cancer, and somehow she's going to use these children to somehow rejuvenate her health, but we never see that in actuality or what her actual plan is, even by the end of the film. So that kind of left me feeling disappointed. But more than that, the thing that made me so frustrated in this was the plot holes, right? There's this scene where the auntie, to show the kid, like, don't mess with me, you need to do exactly what I say, she makes the parents in their hypnotized state start stabbing themselves in the face with freaking forks, man. It's brutal, and they've got all these holes in their face. But then after that, right, all the kids disappear, and the police are going and interviewing the kid, they're meeting the dad, and the auntie sort of says, oh yeah, he's had a stroke recently. But it doesn't make any sense how the police were overlooking the fact that this guy had holes in his face. Bruh. And yes, you see a little scene where the auntie witch is like sort of dabbing him up with something, like it looks like makeup maybe, to try and cover that. But I feel like surely if you are a police investigator, you're going to look at this kind of creepy parent guy very strangely, and also surely they're not going to buy that both parents had a stroke. I mean, also their friends, surely this family had friends in the town and they would pick up that the parents aren't acting the same way. That kind of part of the movie, the whole underpinning, the whole story of how the witch got away with this, it just didn't make sense. And the rest of this movie is so well made, but that sort of narrative thread just doesn't hold together. And for me, as a nitpicker, as somebody who likes my stories to have logic and not have plot holes, that really, really took me out of the movie, and it is a big shame. And overall, again, I'm left thinking, what was the point of this film? At the end, all the kids, they end up finding and devouring and tearing apart the witch as she runs away from them screaming, because the kid that she was kind of holding hostage, he eventually figures out how to make the curse happen himself, and curse hurts. Very clever what the kid does, and it's satisfying to see after she's been such a nasty character. It's a really funny and hilarious scene at the end there. But again, it's just, you're kind of left going, okay, so what does this all mean? I've seen some people talk about how maybe this is meant to be a commentary on how institutions have failed children. Maybe there's something there. Also, I think it could have something to do with brainwashing in a way of, social media is brainwashing kids these days and weaponizing them potentially for the future, whether that be sending them down certain political rabbit holes or ideology that's going to make these kids dangerous. And the film is kind of saying, when you allow this to happen, one of the big failures of Josh Brolin as a father, his character, is that he hasn't told his kid that he loves them. And I think maybe the movie's trying to tap into that idea of, if you don't, sort of hold your children really close and look after them, the world is capable of turning them into some kind of weapon. Maybe there's some deep meaning there, but again, the witch's motivations, they're just not explained at all, really, and I found that frustrating and a bit of a cop-out. If I missed something, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, what you think. And also, for me as a Christian watching this movie, there is a complete absence of Christianity in this film, when there's clearly this kind of witch or satanic worship or, some kind of demonic evil stuff going on. Man, I tell you, if I was one of the characters in this movie, even if I wasn't a Christian, I'd be getting out my Bible, I'd be praying, and no characters try and do that. And I feel like if you are seeing this kind of supernatural stuff happen, surely somebody is going to at least try and protect themselves in some kind of religious way. But maybe Cregger didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, or the movie's not really meant to be about that. I understand that. Like, there's just so many scenes here in isolation that you look at and go, wow, that was amazing and horrifying. Like, the scenes with Benedict Wong are just, oh man, it's crazy. And when he's possessed, man, that is gonna stick with me. That was brutal. But again, as I said, what I like about Cregger is there's also moments of humor here where it's funny. Those dream sequences, they are fantastic. So overall, I did have a fun time with this, but I do think those plot holes are potentially gonna really frustrate a lot of people. But that being said, Zach Cregger, he is still one of my favorite horror directors working now with this and Barbarian. You can see he's got his own distinct flavor. I cannot wait to see what he does next. So overall, I'm going to give Weapons 3 stars out of 5. Look, it could be higher, but me just being the nerdy freaking nerd that I am, those plot holes just frustrated me too much. But the actual production quality of this film is up there with a 4-star and above. It's just the writing that just frustrating. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.